Good morning, Al Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. I remember when I was coaching a group of mortgage professionals, and in the conference room, there was an entire wall filled with inspirational sayings and quotes. And one of the quotes was, "Pressure makes diamonds." And immediately I thought of a time when I was working with a very talented young athlete, and we're at their event, and their father comes up to me and says, "Pressure makes diamonds. I'm not really sure about this pressure-free method, right?" And their child was kind of cracking under pressure. Have you ever experienced that where, the pressure's just too much, and so you just kind of fold up, like you don't perform the way you know you can? We see it all the time in pro sports. We saw it with Simone Biles. Like the pressure was too much. She just couldn't do it. She couldn't compete. So, so I want to explain like what pressure-free actually means and what the method is in this video for you. Because it doesn't mean that we're avoiding pressure situations. That's impossible because, especially if you're a high achiever, you probably enjoy challenging yourself and pushing yourself. Uh, this book that I wrote here, Pressure-Free Parenting, the first byline I had is the 10-second solution to reduce stress and anxiety for high achieving families. It tends to be the kind of people that want to work with me, is people that want to take it to the next level. And so this is what pressure-free means. No matter what pressures or challenges or situations that are causing tension in you, you encounter, you can stay free of releasing stress hormones. So it's not the pressure that actually hurts us. It's whether or not we treat that pressure as a true threat to our physical well-being and release a flood of hormones. It's the hormones that do the damage, the stress response that does the damage, not the actual stressor or the pressure. So the pressure-free method has 3 steps. The first step is, what is your target? When I reflect back to that athlete, they wanted to compete at a higher level. They wanted to do well in college. They had very specific targets of what they wanted to have happen. And so those identifying those targets, that is really the fuel for you for whatever it is you want to create. Now, the target could be as simple as, I just want to feel happier, or I just don't want to get upset every time somebody says something to me. I don't want to be nervous in front of a room when I'm speaking. Any of those particular small things can be your target. I was working with one, again, sometimes my young clients, they just really share so much and they're willing for me to share their stories. But this client had been what you might say is locked in anxiety for 2 years. And when I taught her something specific about the stress response, she just lit up and she goes, "Oh, I can do this." And I go, "Yes, you can." And her target was just to feel happier. Really, that was her main target. So identifying targets, that's step one. Step two, what's causing you to trigger the stress response? What's causing you to release these floods of hormones? And you might not even be aware you're doing it. I certainly wasn't aware of how many times in my day I was doing it. Like one morning I counted, I was getting everybody ready for school and for work. It was 20 times. So it could be the most minor thing, like an appliance not working correctly, or you drop something on the floor, or you're running slightly late, or in the case of being a hockey parent, once we went outside and well, this would happen often, like not just the outside windshield shield needed scraping, but the inside needed scraping too. And they don't design scrapers. Actually, that's $1 million idea for hockey parents to do the inside windshield. So I'm like, little flakes of snow are flying in the car, and the boys are laughing and saying, "Oh, it's snowing in the car." Right? I am not laughing. It obviously triggered the stress response like multiple times. So identifying your triggers, figuring that out, it's I consider it a game. We have to play because it can be so I mean, you can cry over it. Like for 40 years, I was triggering over this one thing, and it was so unnecessary. So what I do with my clients is we just play identifying these various triggers. Sometimes a client will be telling me a story, and as they're coaching, I can see their face. So on Zoom, on the screen, I'll just have them freeze for a moment and take a look at their face and like, oh, that's a hot topic. That every time you think about that project at work or whatever the situation is, you're probably triggering the stress response. So targets, triggers, third step is tools, and the 10-second solution. So in most situations, from a resting heart rate, it takes about 10 seconds before the two mechanisms of your brain begin the whole process of the stress response. So 10 seconds is plenty of time to do something very simple to give yourself that moment to say, is this any reason to mess up my body and mind for the next 9 or 24 hours? Like if you're male or female, it's going to be hours that your cells are having to deal with these releases of hormones. Plus, once you're in the stress response, once you're under the influence of these drugs inside your body, you literally are so vulnerable to trigger again and again and again. Have you ever heard that expression piling on? So I'm going to go back to like scraping the inside of the windshield because the hockey bags, the hockey equipment steamed up the car and now it's frozen on the inside. So like trying to get that off of the windshield. Um, then my brain will start piling on. Okay, the reason we're out here and we're having to do this is because the garage is full of all these art projects and props and tools and gardening equipment. Like it's too packed with stuff. I think we had the ping pong table out there at one time for me to get the car in there. So it's out here getting covered in snow every night. So the piling on will start to happen. You'll find yourself very curt, very impatient sometimes. And so you'll be impatient with the smallest of things like get out of the car, you got to get to work. Like, it's just crazy stuff that will go through your head. That crazy stuff is not the true you. But under the influence of these hormones, anything could feel like a threat to what you want to achieve. I just wrote a piece in my newsletter, and I truly believe this is true. I got to post this up. I I've thought about this for years, by the way, for years that the ego are egoic behaviors. So all of those aggrandizing, all the things we do, self-protection, I think it's a construct of the stress response. And the more you don't trigger these hormones, the less you're going to actually exhibit those kinds of behaviors. That's been true for me. It's been true for so many of my clients, especially in leadership positions where when you're a leader, people could view some of your actions as being egotistical or egoic. I really question that. I think it's the times when we're not fully functioning here because of the stress hormones that we move into those behaviors. So think of that about that in terms of a family and parents not going into that behavior, plus kids not going into that behavior, especially during the teen years. Like that is such a game changer. So tools and the 10-second solution, you can just ask yourself this question: what can I do in that 10-second window to prevent myself from overreacting? You'll come up with some cool tools yourself. I've built over 50 working with my clients. It sounds like a lot, but what I realize is the method I've created is very, very simple. But what isn't simple is us. We have habits of reaction that are generations old. They've just been passed down, not just from our caregivers, but from anyone that you emulated. So, like if you had a best friend who kind of had some mean tendencies, I'm thinking mean girl right now, you may have picked up some of those tendencies into adulthood. Or you had a professor or teacher that you really, really liked, and they overreacted on certain things. Like you might have picked up some of those things just subconsciously. So we're untangling a lot of patterns that you may have had for years or decades, or again, it's gone on for generations. It's not inherited. People will ask, is anxiety inherited? My dad was anxious. And here's what I can say, and it's strictly anecdotal. I have not done research on this. I would love to, but what I see is that it's not inherited, it is imitated. So if you had a parent who was exhibiting a lot of anxiety or a lot of anger, you either you either subconsciously started taking on some of that, or you may have consciously said, I'm not going to do that. So you kind of push away from what that behavior is. Because you see a better way. You don't want to do that. Like I had a client who said, um, well, I came from a very abusive family, and I don't want to do that to my own kids, but I find myself getting angry at times, and I feel myself getting out of control, right? They were really coming clean about all that. And I just looked them straight in the eyes and I said, the more you work the pressure-free method, the more you'll be in control of your reactions to things, and the more you won't overreact. And I just had such full belief that he could do that. And I just knew he could, like, because this isn't hard. But what is hard is when doubts creep in, or um, or you're in a situation that is so pressure filled, um, and you don't seem to get a break, so you feel like, oh, this isn't working. I assure you, you do have these 10 seconds. These 10 seconds are precious. They're so precious. But here's the situation. I was coaching a hockey player who got into a massive fight at the very beginning of a game, the first game of a tournament. He was so out of control that he was thrown out of the rest of the tournament, and I think another whole week. He could not play in any games in the league. So it's kind of devastating. He was rather upset. So he got out of his gear, got into his dress clothes, was sitting out on the bleachers. He sat close to me. And so I just moved down a little bit, and I said, I have something I can share with you that can help you in the future here. I said, okay, so you've got about 10 seconds. And he looked at me and he said, oh no, Mrs. Ingalls, I only have zero point 0.6 seconds. 0.6 seconds before I'm hot. And so I thought about that and I'm like, oh, that's because he's in an up-leveled heart rate. If you're in an athletic heart rate, you have less time because your heart is already pumping really high, and it will shoot up into that 200 beats per minute where the stress response will happen. So I go, oh, you need to find the sweet spot of your athletic heart rate where you're not going too high. So I do that with all my athlete clients. And then the second thing is to trust that however much time you have plenty of time. And a couple of things I do with athletes, and you can even do this like putting a little chime on your computer or whatever when you're working. But whenever the whistle would blow in volleyball and hockey and basketball, wherever whistles are blown, soccer, um, in the moment you hear that whistle, to relax your abs and take a longer breath, slow the heart rate. If you can get that heart rate slowed down a little bit, that will help you stay in the sweet spot. Same thing at work. If you're getting churned up about something, it's like relax your abs, slow your breathing. That's all you need to do. You don't need to like breathe for 10 minutes or meditate for 10 minutes or any of that. You just need to relax your abs and take a longer, slower breath. Now, if those tools don't work, which is why I built over 50, because sometimes clients will go, I'm trying this tool and it's just not working. Okay, we need different tools. So the tools that I teach my clients come in three types: body tools, mind tools, life design tools. In my CEO book and in this parenting book here, I share about 14 of my 50 tools just to get people started and not to provide, I don't want to give overwhelm. But I have some very fine tools. Some tools you might think are rather more complex. And by the way, I don't, thinking about children here, uh, my children get all my tools. The children that I coach get all my tools because my children clients, I I don't know which ones are going to work. And sometimes my most complex tools are the ones they like the most. So I think it allows them to think like they're cutting off where they were going, and they're allowing their brain to work on something, and now they can make a proper response, a proper decision in the situation. So I love that word decision. It means we're cutting off other options, like we're going here. So and that gets to like when people have a strategy call for me, I love it when I see that decision point where they're like, I'm doing this, because it means that they're choosing them and their health and the health of everybody around them. It creates this ripple effect. One of my clients said after just our first session, she goes, this is going to change my family for generations to come, because you can teach this to your children, or you can have your child come work with me. I work with children as young as 10. I have done elementary school programs as young as first grade. So, so a child can learn this, and it's cool to teach educators this because they'll use it in the classroom. And I had one teacher share with me that she had taught her class some of the pressure-free tools, and these are second graders she is a teacher of, and they were working on a project in teams, and one of the teams was much slower than the other teams. It was a science project, and they were getting really upset. And one of the little girls coached the team in pressure free and said, "It's going to be fine. Relax your belly. Everybody smile a little." Like she was taking them through tools. Let's push the Ferris wheel. The teacher said it was just beautiful to see. So it doesn't matter how old we are. You can be 80. I coached a woman who was 80. Um, but understanding this method, digging into what's really causing you, what kind of pressures are really working on you, they could be subconscious. That is the key. It's not that we're going to avoid pressure. It's that we're going to experience it in a totally different way where we're in control of our response to it. So I hope that's helpful. I'm excited to have a podcast. I just had a great podcast drop, by the way. I put it on here, so you can take a look at it with a really great colleague of mine, Peter Santry. He's a business coach. So that's out. And then Demisha Craig, she's in Palo Alto. She just interviewed me, and she comes from a very high-powered family. Her father was a four-time Super Bowl winner, and she said that no one's talked about pressure the way that I have. So if you feel a lot of pressure, let's have a conversation. I'm here for you, of course. And I wish you a great pressure-free day.